It's an impactful experience when you come into contact with someone who has a life that is incredibly different than yours, and yet you can see Christ at work in their lives, and you can feel the deep need for ministry and for connection and for community in that person when you meet them in the field. Someone who themselves is thousands of miles away from a place they've called home. So I was raised as a Southern Baptist, but the first time I went to a Mass, I felt like something was happening that I had never experienced before. I felt like there was a deep worship happening that, while I never sensed that wasn't necessarily happening at Protestant services, it was just something deeper, something more connecting that was calling to me. And the more and more I studied my Catholic faith, the more I realized that it was the Eucharist, it was Christ, it was the Lord himself being present in the Mass that was speaking to me, calling to me. And that's more or less when I made the decision that I have to become Catholic. It didn't take very long. It only took a Mass, maybe two, when I kind of had to make the decision. Like, this is it. This is it. I can't keep pretending like I haven't had an encounter, I haven't had an experience that is calling me to this greater truth. And so what led me here, more or less, is throughout college, I felt like there was still this call, this slow and steady call from God saying, I want something more from you. I want something more from you. And so as I got to the end of college, I actually went to work for the Archdiocese of Atlanta in our office of, then it was the Office of Intercultural and Ethnic Diversity. Today I believe it's called the Office of Intercultural Ministries. And I loved the work. We were working with communities from all over the city, and we were doing different classes and different programs on fostering intercultural competencies, fostering intercultural dialogue between different communities within the parishes of the Archdiocese. But the other side of the job, and the part of the job I really, really enjoyed, was getting to go to the various parties and getting to get to know these various communities. You get a large enough group and a diverse enough group in a place like Atlanta, somebody somewhere is partying every weekend for various reasons. But it was a great part of the job too. But again, at the end of that year, I really made the decision that it was time for me to go and really kind of consider seminary in a deeper way. And that's how I came to be here at Mundelein. Atlanta sent me here, and I did my first 2 years of pre-theology with the Archdiocese of Atlanta. However, after my first year of pre-theology, the first summer I was, a full-fledged seminarian who at least had 1 year of seminary under my belt, I went to the Diocese of Yakima. I loved the work they were doing. I really felt a call to the ministry in that particular spot. And I remember distinctly there was this moment after I got back that one of the Gospels was the Gospel of finding a treasure in the field. And I meditated on it, and I was stuck on it for a long time, and I couldn't quite understand why I was stuck on this idea of finding a treasure in the field. And I realized it was because of my experiences in the fields over that summer. It's an impactful experience when you come into contact with someone who has a life that is incredibly different than yours, and yet you can see Christ at work in their lives, and you can feel the deep need for ministry and for connection and for community in that person when you meet them in the field. Someone who themselves is thousands of miles away from a place they've called home. This particular experience I can think of, this gentleman I was talking to was just thousands of miles from his own home. And yet the church was there. And we wanted to be there. And we wanted to walk with them in their experience, in their work, in their daily lives, regardless of how hard that might be for someone who doesn't necessarily have experience in the fields. But we were there, and we wanted to be with them. So after finding that treasure in the field, I began to realize that not that I didn't have other wonderful things happening in ministry in other places, or not that I didn't have other wonderful experiences encountering the Lord in Atlanta or in Alabama or in my previous life as a Protestant. But you know that moment when you find a treasure. Mm-hmm. And you sell everything to go to that treasure. You give things up. You have to sacrifice in order to find it. And I feel like that's what a little bit of the experience was like for me. I found this treasure in the field. I was called to leave things. I was called to kind of uproot myself from a region of the country, from a place in the country that, again, my family had been in for well over 200 years. But if you find a treasure, you find something that precious, you go and you find it and you pursue it.